Hello again! In the last video, we set up the various states that the game could be in, and we started setting up some of the transitions. In this video, we are going to actually turn on and off the spawn volumes based on the game state and position ourselves for the last piece, which will be making changes to the character. So we're first going to look at the spawn volumes, but before that I want to fix one thing that I did wrong in the last video, which hopefully you noticed as well. If we go into our widget for the power that we created, and if you're in the designer view, just click on the finding for the get text. We'll find the binding, and here you'll notice hopefully that I did something terribly wrong, which was I said in the case where the cast fails, we're going to print some text and output that to the screen. However, I didn't do any. This is not correct at all, in fact. So we need to get rid of that and fix it up. And the way we're going to do that is just like we did with the percentage value. We're going to promote this to a local variable, which we will call, let's just call it out text. And that is what is going to be pushed to the return value. So just like with the percentage, the return value here is what we're going to actually set to the out text. So I'm going to alt drag that in. And so we're going to set the out text here and just wire it in to our happy path. There we go. That is what will actually happen in the case where we have the good value. And now I'm just closing this up a little bit so it's not too far away. And so now we need to deal with the fail case. And that's going to be the same thing. We're going to alt drag, and we're going to set the text to some value which is unknown, and then short circuit and exit. Oops, that was a happy path again. There we go. It's the fail case. There we go. So now what will happen is, just like in the other case, if something goes wrong, we will set a meaningful value of some sort, unknown in this case, and then pass that to the out text variable, which is here. Okay? That's going to fix that up. So I wanted to correct that issue before we move on. Close that out. All right, now we need to do the business with the spawn volumes. So we want to toggle them on and off. And let's go over to Visual Studio and take a look. Here in Visual Studio, I'm going to open the spawn volume class, go to the CPP file. You'll recall that we start and we do spawning based on a timer. So here in begin play on the server, we go ahead and pick a random value for our spawn delay and we set the timer. But we're not going to repeat it. Then every time we spawn a pickup, we set the timer again. Okay, so we need to make this actually happen based on whether the spawn volume is turning on or off. So we need to create a toggle function. Let's go into our spawn volume header file and do just that. We're going to go into the public section and we'll make this is a void function, and we're going to set spawning active, and we'll pass in a boolean for whether we should spawn. Okay, that's pretty much it. So we're going to actually create this function, and we're going to let's go ahead and make this a U function, and we'll make it blueprint callable, because it definitely changes functionality, so it's not pure. And we'll put it in the category, oh man, equal spawning. Okay, and let's put a note here that this is going to toggle spawning of pickups on and off. Okay, now we need to go and implement that. So let's switch over to our CPP file, and let's just go down here to, where did I put it in this file? We'll just set spawning active. We'll put it above. Let's put it right here. Void a spawn volume. Set spawning active. Pass in the bool. B should spawn. Okay, and now, of course, the first thing we want to do is put in our role guard. Role is equal to role authority, our authority guard here. Okay, and so we need to toggle it. So if we should spawn, if B should spawn, we're going to do something. So we're going to turn on, or we're going to start spawning, and then otherwise, that means B should spawn is false, we're going to stop spawning. Okay, So the way we're going to do that is let's just grab this code that we had earlier and move it into the function. So this is going to set the timer to start spawning pickups for us. Then we need to stop spawning by clearing the timer. So we call get world timer manager dot clear timer, pass in, we call it spawn timer, the timer handle. There we go. And now we don't need this anymore. And in fact, we don't have a reason for this begin play, but we'll just so we'll wipe that out. I'm just going to go in the header file and get rid of that. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to back out and leave that. I'm just going to leave it there for now. It's fine. Okay. And then the other thing is we want to clear out where we do multiple places where we're doing code by calling the function set spawning active. So let's go down here. After we spawn a pickup, we delay a bit and start spawning another one. Well, now we don't have to duplicate the code. We just make the function call and set that to true. And it will go ahead and set the timer to spawn the next pickup. Perfect. Now our actual logical code is in one place instead of multiple places, which, as I mentioned many videos ago, is what we wanted. Okay. Now we've got that set. Now we need to actually call it based on our gameplay logic. So let's go and update our logic. We're going to have to do that in two steps in the game mode. The first thing we need to do is gather up, and we need to be able to call this function on any and all the spawn volumes in the world. So we're going to need to track all those spawn volumes that are in the world. We need to gather those up and have them available in an array. So let's do that. We'll create this array, and nobody really needs access to this, so we're just going to make it private. It's a T array of class A spawn volume pointer, and we'll call this the spawn volume actors. Again, this is fairly straightforward. If you've seen this in Epic's version of the tutorial, this is exactly the same line of thinking and the same approach. So we're going to track all the spawn volumes in the level with this variable. So now we need to go ahead and collect those up. The best time to do that is when the game started. So let's go ahead right after we reset stats, and we will gather up all the spawn volumes and store them for later. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is we're going to loop through, or we're actually going to scrap that. We're going to actually store these in an array using the getActorsOfClass function. So let's go ahead and create the output value, which is a T array of actors, and we'll just call it our found actors. Then we're going to use the getAllActorsOfClass function. So that's a U gameplay statics function, get all actors of class, and the class is going to be, or rather, we pass in the world. The class is going to be a spawn volume static class function, call the static class function, and pass in our out value of found actors. Okay, there we go. And then, oh, you'll notice the squigglies. We gotta get a handle to those because we're actually using the spawn volumes. So let's include a header for that. Spawn volume.h. Okay, so now we need to loop through all of those, and we're going to use this auto actor, this shorthand. It'll create a for loop for us to go through all the actors, and then we're going to, let's go ahead and we got to downcast the actor to spawn volume. Test spawn volume equals, let's downcast to a spawn volume the actor that we found. And then, assuming that works, we're going to go ahead and, whoops, that is volume. We're going to go ahead and store it in that array that we created. So we go, hey, spawn volume actors, and we're going to use add unique, which will ensure that there's only one of these, so there's no duplicates. Test spawn volume. So just in case, we'll go ahead and do that. So what this will do is add the volume to the array and ensure it only exists in the array once. So that way we don't have duplicates. Okay, so that's all we need to do there. So now we actually have this spawn volume actors, which will be populated with all of the spawn volumes in the world. And so now we can actually set up our state transition so that whenever we transition to playing state, we turn on those volumes using that function that we created just a minute ago, the set spawning active function. Okay, in order to do that, we need the game mode is going to have a new function that will handle these new states. So let's go back over here and create that. That is a function that we're going to just put over here. And like I said, this is something that is all internal. So we're going to make this a void handle new state. And we pass in the E battery play state new state. So this is going to handle any function calls for when the game transitions between states. Okay, now we're using the E battery play state. We need to know what it is, so we have to add it to our includes. So we have to add the gamestate class up here, which is our nmp game gamestate.h. Okay, so we've got the header file there, and make sure that the header file is above the generated. The generated needs to be the last one in the list. So just make sure you put it up there. Okay, so now we know about the battery play state. So now we can actually implement this function. So let's just grab that signature and switch over to our game mode. We'll just drop that all the way here at the bottom. Put that in there, add our nmp game mode, handle the play state. And it's raining like crazy outside. You might be able to hear that. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to set handling of each case for each state. So what we're going to need to do is say, okay, one thing we want to do though first is make sure that this is actually a new state. We don't want to transition from playing to playing or from game over to game over. That doesn't make sense. So let's make sure that the new state is not the same as the previous or the current state. And we get the current state, current state from the game state. So we need to get a handle to the game state. So let's just grab here where we get those handles to the world in the game state. We'll just drop that same block of code here. So now we need to make sure that my game state get current state. Okay, so make sure the states are actually different. And if they are, then we're going to update the state so clients know about it, about the transition. So we'll go ahead and say, hey, game state, set the current state to the new state. Okay, and then let's just make sure we say only, I'm just putting a note here, only transition if this is actually a new state. Okay, so now we want to handle each one of those states. And the way we do that, and if you've done Epic's version of this tutorial, it's the same. We're going to do it in a switch block using the new state. Okay? So we need to handle each case. So the case where E battery play state for E playing. And then we'll need to handle the case where E battery play state game over. Then we need the case where E battery play state the game is won. And then the last one is E battery play state where we have an unknown. Okay, and we also need a default, so that's going to be the unknown. So if we get here for something weird, then this is what's going to take care of it for us. Okay, so that's the default and the case. All right, so we need to fill in the code here. So what happens when we start playing the game? Well, we need to activate the spawn volumes, right? And then when the game is over, we want to deactivate the spawn volumes. And similarly, when the game is won, we also want to deactivate spawn volumes because the game is done. We can stop spawning pickups. All right, so we just need to fill these in. Since we already have those actors, those volumes in that array, we can just loop through that array for a spawn volume pointer, spawn volume in the spawn volume actors array. We just say, hey spawn volume, set spawning active to true. So we just iterate through all of those volumes and say, hey, start spawning. And then similarly, when the game is over, we say, hey, stop spawning. And again, here, when the game is over. In either of those two cases, we tell the spawn volumes to stop spawning. Great. Now, the only other thing we need to do here is to clean up or refactor the code a little bit. Remember, we went to the game state directly, set the current state. Now we're going to actually handle the new state. So I'm just going to copy that and replace these calls to the game state and say, hey, just go handle the new state. And similarly, when we win the game, we're going to say, okay, handle that state, instead of calling the game state function directly. And finally, there's one other case where we do that, which is when we begin play and we transition to the playing state. There we go. So now, whenever we have any of these cases, any of the state transitions, we're handling that in the game mode directly, which will also update the game state and turn on and off those spawn volumes. Perfect. So now we can go ahead and hit build, right-click on the game and hit build, and that'll do a test compile. Make sure all that's working. And then, so we've got that, the spawn volumes are set up, we've got the game mode set up to deal with the spawn volumes, and we're turning them on and off. So we should be able to now go ahead and switch over to the editor, and now in the editor we can go ahead and test this out. So let's hit play. We see both of our characters. I'm going to go ahead and test the winning state. If I can pick up enough juice, I win. Now let's see if no more batteries are spawning. Perfect. So the spawning has been turned off. Alright, let's run the test again. Exit out, hit play again. Batteries start spawning. I'm just going to pick up a couple of those to make sure that I don't die at the exact same time as the server, so we can make sure that all the state transitions are happening correctly. Just wait. The server's about to die. Server's gone. I picked up a little more power. I'm still alive. Spawn volumes are still spawning. And bingo. Now it appears that there are no more spawn volumes spawning. Okay, so spawn volumes are no longer, the one spawn volumes, no longer spawning pickups. Excellent. Okay, so now we have that all set up. And so we are done setting up the state transitions. So the last thing we want to do is go into our play states and handle the case where the player dies. We want to ragdoll the player and disable player input. So we will handle that in the next video.